Antoine Wade. I haven't been with you all in a very long time. Took some time off because we relocated across the country from the wonderful, beautiful San Jose, California to Austin, Texas. And now that we're settled, things can continue to go. So here I am. Tonight, I got a special guest. My family, my awesome cousin, Mrs. Felicia Lawrence. Felicia is a graduate of South Carolina State University. She has a BA, a MA, a EDS, all this stuff. I don't even know what it is. But she is currently an instructor in speech pathology and audiology for the South Carolina State University. She is also an owner and operator of Lawrence Speech Services LLC, which provides contract services to schools, nurses, neuro nursing homes, hospitals, and home health. Felicia is a member of the American Speech Hearing Association, South Carolina Speech Hearing Association, as well as the South Carolina School Administrators Association. I can't read tonight, guys. That's just what it is. It's so much. She has so much in here, and she's going to be able to tell us exactly everything that she does. But either way, this is going to be a good show. I am happy to have her on. It's been a long time coming. And for you all that's in the audience, do me a favor. If you're watching us on Facebook, jump over to our YouTube channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, stay there. Do me a favor and chat in if you have any questions, and we'll do our best to answer those for you. Let's make it interactive like we always do. Let's do this. Let's give Felicia an opportunity to tell us how she is doing. How you doing, cousin? How you doing?
Hey AJ, I'm good. How are you, man?
I am doing fantastic. I cannot complain. It's been a wonderful day. Look at that. We got the girls already in here. Tiffany and Tamara said hi, cousin, and they are excited
Hey,
for the
Tiffany.
show.
Hey, Tiffany. Hey, Tamara. You
Awesome.
got me in here. Let's see what happens.
Oh, this is going to be fun. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a great conversation.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So, you guys know what we do here, right? We start off typically with our guests talking a little bit more about themselves. Well, let's just not say this, not talking about themselves, playing a game, giving us a little bit more about themselves. So, we're going to go to the lightning round, a little lightning round of this or that. And we have about 20 questions to 25 questions for Felicia. And
Mm.
Felicia, the game is you tell us which one you would rather have or want, or which one is better for you. You got it? You good with that?
I'm good with that. Let's
All
get
right.
it.
Okay, let's do it. Louis Vuitton or Tory Burch?
Oh, my goodness. Louis Vuitton.
All right. What about designer handbags or designer shoes?
Shoes, hands down.
Shop online or shop in a retail store?
Retail store.
Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich or Popeye's chicken sandwich?
Ah, since I haven't had Popeye's Chick-fil-A.
All right. I haven't had it yet either, but I hear the wonderful things about it. Okay, let's do this. Antley's barbecue or Duke's barbecue?
Oh, wow. Antley's.
All right. Would you rather your husband get 100 more pairs of Clark Wallabies, or he wears the same shoes every day for the rest of his life?
Let them get the 100 pair.
All right. Best new addition to Orangeburg: Starbucks or Chipotle?
Oh, Chipotle.
Okay. No one shows up to your wedding or no one shows up to your funeral?
Wedding. I just need my husband.
Okay, that's good. Have world peace or stop world hunger?
World peace.
Be an adult your whole life or be a kid your whole life.
Oh, be a kid my whole life.
Love your sense of smell or lose your sense of taste.
Ooh,
I know
sense of
that,
smell.
I know that was a good one
Yeah.
too. Be Batman
Yeah.
or Spider Man.
Spider-Man.
Age only from the neck up or age only from the neck down.
Oh, AJ. Oh man. Um, neck down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be stupid smart or be smart in a stupid world.
Oh, hmm, stupid smart.
All right, we're going to do two more. Have to say everything you think or never be able to speak again.
Oh, have to say everything I think.
All right, last one.
Yeah.
See into the future or change the past.
Change the past.
Ooh, love it, love it, love it.
Mhm.
Look at this, man. We got Mrs. Teresa Wade in the house as well. How you doing, babe? I hope you're having a good time as well downstairs watching us on the big TV. Okay,
Thank you,
so
Lisa.
let's do this now, Felicia. Tell everyone your
Okay.
journey.
Wow.
Where does it all
Um,
start? Where does it all start for you?
the speech pathology journey kind of started accidentally, actually. Graduated school, had no clue what I wanted to do, I wanted to be. And so I went, entered South Carolina State as a freshman, undecided on a major, and ended up in the pre pharmacy department. That was interesting for one semester. Um, took my first calculus class and realized not for me. And so I always was good in English, and but I didn't want to major in English. I knew that. I knew a lot about what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to do anything that I had done before. I mean, math, take that from beginning. English, same thing. History, same thing. Science. I was pretty interested in science, so I knew I was going to go science. And then by the second semester, my parents said, you have to make up your mind. You got to figure this out. So South Carolina State at the time was South Carolina State University had one of the best known speech pathology programs. And so I went over there, took a class, got really interested, and never looked back. It was really love at first sight in terms of that major coming into it, and realizing that I could actually change lives at the same time as the fact that that field had so many avenues I could go into, so many different work environments that it afforded me to be able to change. Because with me, I'm a type of person, I don't like to do things long. I like to do things well and short and well, and then move on. So with speech pathology, it gave me opportunity to go from one sector to another sector, but still be in my field. So that was really attractive to me in the beginning.
So tell everyone what speech pathology is, Lisa.
Um, the short version, pathologists, we are communication rehabilitators. So we rehabilitate communication disorders. I mean, everybody pretty much knows what a physical therapist help you walk again. Well, speech pathology or speech pathologists, they remediate communication disorders, being people who may have issues with speech sounds. We work with language. We work with communication, voice, fluency, feeding, swallowing. It's a gamut.
Oh, wow.
It's a large gamut. And wonderful thing about speech is when you're taking your core courses, you're getting a little bit of training in all of it. And it gives you an opportunity when you're taking your courses to kind of figure out, okay, I like this aspect, but maybe not this aspect. So you can kind of concentrate yourself. If you decide, okay, swallowing is what I like the most, or I'm really into that, then you can get a concentration or take more classes or get some certifications or some CEUs in that area. It affords you an opportunity to really horn in on maybe one or two areas.
Yep.
My area is language therapy.
Okay.
I love language therapy. Most of my clients look like children with autism, adults who may have had strokes.
Mm.
Um, I dip and dab in some swallowing, some dysphagia therapy, specifically for my clients who have had strokes and they're in need of some type of feeding or swallowing rehabilitation.
Got it. Got it.
Um, yeah, so it's a gamut. Speech pathology is very widespread in terms of what we can and cannot do.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. So if when I was growing up, I was a kid who had a stutter. If my mom wanted to help me correct it outside of it going away on its own, she would have taken me to like
Mhm.
a speech pathologist, right?
Absolutely, yes. Fluency, aka stuttering, is definitely one sector of speech pathology. Most people, when they do think of speech, they think of not being able to produce your sounds
Mm,
or stuttering. And so, yes, speech pathology or speech pathologists do work with people who stutter. But believe it or not, that's a very small population.
really?
I think in my oh yeah, in my 23 years, um, I've I can count the number of stuttering clients I've had on one hand.
Mm.
Maybe four. Yeah.
So I was somewhat of an anomaly as a kid.
No, because you know what, AJ, honestly, stutterers, when they're little, a lot of children grow out of it.
Yep. That's exactly what
So
happened to
it
me.
absolutely. So it can self-correct. That's what your true stutterer usually start working with that person around uh 7, 8, maybe 9, 10, because a part of stuttering that's just natural.
Yep.
And children, um, particularly smart children, they tend to overthink and have a lot to say, and so things get twisted and get little, jumbled up, and so it comes out as a stutter.
That sounded like me, Felicia.
Mhm. Uh-huh. I remember you like to say things over and over.
Repeat, repeat. All right, so let's do this. Let's take it back,
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah.
So we you're a speech pathologist today. Let's take it back
Hmm.
to how
Yes.
you grew up, like, and talk about like your education and how important education was to, your family. Obviously, my aunt and uncle made sure that in your sophomore year you chose what you wanted to do and you fell in love with it. But talk to
Hmm.
us about where you grew up and then kind of how you were as a student and how important education is to you.
Oh wow. That's interesting because college was, well, as a student, period. I was definitely um interested in a lot of things. School was not at the top of the list. Um, I was okay with a B. I couldn't bring home a C because my parents didn't allow it. But I was okay. I could make an A if I studied, but I was okay with a B. And so I think I went through most of my high school years just, if I can get a B, I'm okay at home. And I was okay with that. And I carried that for a long time, even into college in the beginning. I think, like anything with anyone, if you find something you love,
Hmm.
you just tend to want to do well in it. And I I did. I loved the major, so I wanted to do well. So that's when I really became a strong student.
Yep.
In terms of my parents, they were very clear, very clear. I had to go to college. Now it's interesting because when I think back to them being so clear about me going to college, they kind of left it up to me about, what you're going to major in.
Yep.
But they made sure I took college prep courses. So that was a non-negotiable. Not attending college was a non-negotiable, but um, they provided the home life where I was able to put education first.
Mm.
Um, so that was good, because when I look at students now who have to work 2 or 3 jobs and try to fit school in, I can't imagine. I worked, but it was by choice. It wasn't because I had to. They just made sure I had my needs met.
Mm.
Um, so that's major, and I'm speaking of that because now that I'm a instructor at university, I see how those things can really, they can just affect how your educational life goes
Yep.
when you're
Yep.
having to prioritize, do I study tonight, or do I go in and work 6 hours so I can pay a bill.
Yep. Yep. It gives you a clear
So I, I,
focus.
I yeah, exactly, and that has a lot to do with, sometimes student success. Or so when I look back at that, I'm very appreciative to my parents for providing that type of environment. Not quite appreciating it at the times. I wasn't clear on that. I never had anything to compare it to. And now that I look back at, wow, the student's doing 2 or 3 jobs, I need to do that. I realize the blessing in that.
Awesome.
But yeah, speech. As a student, I became very strong when I found that thing that I love, which is something that I try to tell students now. If you really love what you're doing, it really isn't work. I never saw my college years as work. I was doing something that I really enjoyed.
Wow.
So I became a student because I was doing something that fulfilled me,
Yep.
that really was fulfilling. Yeah. So that saying, if you never go to work, if you do something you love, it really is true.
Well, that's wonderful. Tell everyone what you do today. So, I kind of went over the introduction, and
Hmm.
there's a lot that you do, Felicia. A lot. I can't even keep up with
Yeah,
it, right?
it's
So,
a lot. Yes, sir.
tell everyone what you do today, and this is kind of what I want to make the majority of the conversation. So it's teaching the audience what speech pathology is, but also at the same time about entrepreneurship, because you own your own business, right? You are a professor as
Hmm.
well. Like, tell everyone
Hmm.
what you're doing today, and then we can kind of go into how you start to build your career and your company as well after that.
Right. Well, you remember when I started out, I said that speech allows for so many different sectors.
Mm-hmm.
And I started out as a speech pathologist in the schools. I was there for 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I got that itch. That itch. I got to do something. I knew I didn't want to do something different. I wanted to do it in a different way. And so my next step was becoming I worked in a nursing home. And I did that for about 5 years. And then the itch happened again. And so I decided to, then start looking into my private practice. And family started, had, responsibilities. And wonderful thing about speech pathology, it does allow you to afford yourself. And I wanted a flexible schedule. Starting a family, I wanted to be able to do things. And so private practice lended itself to that.
Ooh.
Um, yeah. So that's kind of where my practice came out of. It was something that just kind of evolved as I became more comfortable in my field. I knew I could do these things for myself
Yep.
that I was doing for companies and for other people. Um, and it wasn't difficult at all. It just took a little research, um, some prayer, and I was able to really start my company quickly. I obtained my first contract within about 3 months
Wow.
of starting the company, and that kind of propelled me to. I didn't have an office front. My company was right in my house. I had a computer. I had some file cabinets, and um, I didn't really think I would go any further than just contracting myself or my company. But as I began to get comfortable with contracting, I started realizing I could branch out into more sectors. And so started hiring personnel. And so I employ about two SLPAs, sometimes up to four, and they work contracts while I'm working contracts. And so we spread our wings that way by employing some more personnel.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. So let's do this. What's up,
Mm-hmm.
Gina? How you doing, cousin Gina? Hi, mom. Hi. Oh, okay. Awesome. Look at that. My Miss Schuler said hi, Fee, and
Hey,
cousin Gina's in the house as well too. So
hey, Gina. Hey, Auntie.
wonderful, wonderful. Talking about going into um, becoming an entrepreneur. You said you kind of went out on
Mm-hmm.
faith, and what I heard you say also is you became an expert at it, right?
Oh,
You,
most definitely.
yeah, it's you were an expert at it. You did it for about 9 years within the schools. Then you went and I'm assuming you did it in the nursing homes as well, and said, you know what, it's time for me to kind of go and do my own thing. And you started your company. What was that like? Taking that step. What was that feeling that you had when you took that first step to kind of go off and do it on your own, knowing that you had a family and a husband and so forth?
Honestly, it was quite a step of faith. It really was. Not only I can recall the day that I told my husband I was leaving what appears to be a secure job. And I say that very, very strongly because unless you're owning your own business, nothing is secured. But we were getting ready. We were about 3 months from closing on our house, our
Mm,
first home. And it was just timing. I knew I was ready. I knew what I was doing. And yeah, the research you must do that. That has to take place. But it was timing. I knew it was the right time. I wanted to secure a school contract, and school contracts started coming out around May, June. And so I couldn't miss that window.
hmm.
And because there was a window, I had to move, and I was prayerfully, thank God, it was successful.
Wow, wow, and that's
Yeah,
that's the
but
thing,
it
right?
is.
Acquiring a customer the first 3 months of doing your own thing, that's pretty awesome. You built
It
a brand
is,
for yourself.
but it was great. It was great, but it's awesome. But speech pathology allows for that because
Mm,
of the field itself. It's definitely field driven. I think it just allows for it. It's a great field. It's an open field. It's a growing field. So it allows for it. And I think when I look back, honestly, to how many years I spent working for other people, ooh, it kind of makes me think, wow, I could have made this jump. But I think everything's done in timing, at the right time. But I don't regret it. I just now tell younger people who want to make that jump, it's timing. Just know when these contracts are going to come available. Do your research, do your homework, and it's just timing.
well, let's talk about this, right? For anyone
Mhm.
considering a career in speech pathology, like what are the three most important things they need to do to prepare for such a career? And that's even before becoming an entrepreneur and doing it on their own. Like, what is it that they need to, three most important things you would say that they need to prepare for such a career?
Um, I always tell students, like, if you think about it, AJ, we take math. We start taking math in kindergarten. We start taking English, science, social studies. Those courses we've been exposed to well over 12 years by the time we go to college.
Mm,
Speech pathology is not a course that you've ever taken. So, and for me, I needed that. I needed something fresh. I needed something new. So with that comes, you have to be a reader, a studier. You have to be dedicated because it's something new. you're learning something you've never learned before. That's how it felt to me when I started in this field. So it required me to read a lot. It required me to put a lot of time into it. So definitely you have to dedicate the time. And because you're remediating individuals who when they come to you, they're already at a deficit.
Mm.
So you're changing a person's life. You got to think about it. My most of my clients have had strokes and they were able to talk. They're not. So they're counting on me to bring their voice back. And that's a big deal. That's a huge responsibility. And you have to go in knowing what you're doing. You cannot, it's someone's life. I treat every client like they're my family and how I would want them treated. So if long as you keep that type of love for the field, you're fine. It's just you have to put in the effort. You have to study hard. It's not an easy field. It's a rewarding field,
Yep.
but it's not an easy field.
Wow. Well, it sounds very similar to going into like a a pre med sort of undergraduate education and kind of working your way through like a med school type thing. Every time I think of like a speech pathologist, I think of like a doctor of speech, right? That's kind of what comes to mind for me.
Well, it does. It's not quite that strict, but it's some strict stuff going on there. I mean, in order for a speech pathologist to now hold their master's, their certificate of clinical competence. That's what those C's mean in my name. It's a
Ah.
certificate of clinical competence, and in order to gain your certificate of clinical competence, what's required by the American Speech and Hearing Association is a master's degree, and you do 9 months of a what could be considered a residency. You're working up under someone for 9 months. After your 9 months of clinical fellowship year is what it's called. After you do your CFY year, then pretty much someone's co-signing that you're ready to
Mm.
earn the C's that the American Speech and Hearing Association grants to you. And it's not easy. I mean, it's definitely a labor of love. When students get those C's, they're jumping for joy. I did. I remember getting that letter in the mail telling me there's a national certification. It allows you to be able to work anywhere in the United States and outside, internationally as well. So it's a wonderful credential
Yep.
to earn. It's interesting. I forgot to tell you this, AJ. I had a moment of I think I want to do something else. Remember I told you I get the itch about every 5 years.
Yep.
And the EDS part of my name, that's a actual degree, a specialist in principalship and superintendency. So at one point I thought I wanted to be a principal or a superintendent. That left me very quickly. I've never utilized that degree at all. It's a shame, I think back about it. I'm like, why did I even sit 2 years in a class? I knew I loved speech, but I don't know. I evidently was going through something. I don't know. But yeah, I do hold I have a certification to be a principal, administrator, school administrator,
Wow.
and
Wow.
superintendent. Yeah, it's crazy.
That's
But I
awesome.
have never worked one day, not one day. I have no desire at this point either.
You don't want to deal with those bad kids.
You said it, not me.
What's up, Clark? Thank you for joining the show, brother. Oh man, so Mrs. Tam says, "What's the demographic like for people of color going into the field of speech pathology?"
Oh, great question. Honestly, minorities is about 3%.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 3 to 5%, and that's including all minorities. Yeah, it's an open field. American Speech and Hearing Association, they're doing a lot to try to bring in minorities. It's so needed. Actually, the master's program at our university that I work for, it's at a HBCU. South Carolina State is a HBCU. However, our master's program is about 50-50 in terms of minority and non-minority.
Oh wow, even at a
So we need,
HBCU.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah. Even at a HBCU, so we're very thin, but it's getting better. I applaud the American Speech and Hearing Association for putting scholarships and different putting different programs out there to attract minorities. Right now, the master's program is so competitive. It's a very competitive program. I often think if I had to try to get into a program now, I probably wouldn't be able to. But I mean, it's extremely competitive. But we need minority students because you have to remember the field needs to reflect the population.
right, right.
And so when you don't have that, it's always a discrepancy there. So it's
What
about
is the
three to five
demographic?
percent.
Yeah, so Lisa, what is the demographic like from a male female perspective?
Oh, wow. Goodness. I have two males in my class out of 22 students.
Wow.
And
So
that's huge. That's huge. I would think males are probably, I would go as far as to say about 1% or less in the field
really,
for males. Hmm. Yeah.
so it's
But
a
but
female
it's, yeah,
dominated field.
absolutely. Absolutely. Female dominant. Hmm.
Wow. Is
But
it
we're getting more and more all the time. I mean, we're getting more male applicants all the time. Last year, I had no one to graduate, no males. The year before, no males. And then I think back in, okay, it's 2019, 2017, I remember there being two. And they're highly sought out, uh,
and
very highly sought out.
why do you think? Why do you think? Because it's not like engineering, right? At one point in time, a lot of women were in engineering and computer sciences and stuff like that in the past. But now it's starting to, women are starting to make up a lot of those STEM sort of majors. Why do we think for the speech pathology field that it is more heavily weighted towards the female gender?
Well, honestly, it's because of how we started out. And
Mm,
the history of speech pathology was just in the schools.
okay.
And so,
Okay.
you think about most of your school teachers were female.
That's right.
So because the start of the field was in the schools, you had that female dominance,
Yeah.
because of the setting. Now that the setting has really evolved, I mean, we're finding a lot more males interested in the field. I have two football players in my program this year. I'm excited about. Um, so it's getting out there. They're coming.
Wow, that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
So, talk
Hmm.
about what speech pathology does for you personally. Like what is obviously you have a passion for it, but what is it that just gets you up every single day to go and be the best that you can be?
Your clients, your client station. When you get a client who was a teacher who's in her 60s and who's had a stroke, you think about what a teacher impart knowledge. They talk all day long, and to lose your voice and to not be able to do that is devastating.
Mm,
So to know that someone's depending upon you, or if I'm working with a swallowing patient or a feeding patient, and they can't eat until I decide, what consistency is going to keep them from aspirating, from choking.
mm,
It's food is pleasure. So it's something that to know that someone's depending on you that heavily gets you up out of bed. Um, or it could be the kid who is stuttering and who needs to not be picked on,
yep.
have students, kids, make fun of them. So it drives you to really do your job and want to do it well and try to find the right techniques and the right strategies to get that person to a place where they're with limits, that they're functioning within normal limits.
Awesome, awesome. So what are like the challenges for the guys? You know, because I typically ask this question because a lot of the people that I have on here are either engineers or in some sort of computer science and stuff like that, or either entrepreneurship
Mm-hmm.
and all this other stuff. But this is since this is a women's dominated field, like what challenges are there for men in speech
Mm-hmm.
pathology?
There's a huge sector of clients that are children, and I think one of the major misconceptions is that men aren't nurturers in that way. So I know I've had some male clients to go with me on different offsites or in different settings, and men are extremely nurturing, especially little girls. I think they're more nurturing than women are. And people are always amazed. They're like, "Oh my God, look how he made her stop crying!" Or so I think they're just this misconception of just this being a female field, and men don't do quote unquote non-macho things like console a child when they're upset, or um, but I think it's just the way it's always been, and it's changing, AJ. I don't think there's missions. I think it's like just, oh, there's just a bunch of girls in the field, so I'm not going. Now, some guys see that as a plus, but
Yep.
the majority are like, well, there's no guys over there. I'm not going to major in that. So we recruit. I have to recruit and say to them, hey, and most men, to be honest with you, what drives them apartment, and I know the guys that I have over there now, the money. The money's great. You can support yourself. You can afford yourself. You can support your family. So um, a lot of them are realizing that. A lot of them are realizing the stability, the ability to um, be able to maneuver the workforce and not be stuck in one area, having multiple jobs at one time.
Right. Right.
Um, I'm always dually employed. I don't recall ever, as a speech therapist, not having two or three jobs.
Wow.
And it's easy to it's attractive to men when you start telling them what's really going on in this field. Most of them find it attractive, and
Wow.
I
Wow.
think that the macho ness is what not being macho in the field is kind of what's been the hindrance.
Yeah. Yeah. I would assume that. I would assume that. Just like newbie God 132 said, bro, you lucky you about to cry. I cry sometime, man. I cry sometime. What's up, Anton Walker? What's going on? Tamara said you mentioned that POC is very minimal in the speech pathology field. Being a woman of color from the South, did you have any challenges starting your own private practice? Good question, Tam.
Good question. Not starting the practice per se, but maybe obtaining contracts. Yeah. Um, I think in any field where you're not seen often, people are not as quick to want to hire you. So there have been some situations where I've had to prove myself, probably more than someone else had to. But I think that's kind of how I'm used to that. Unfortunately, I'm used to that. I'm used to working a little bit harder,
Yeah.
and it just makes for a stronger me. But yeah, not necessarily starting the business was difficult, but obtaining the contracts that some of my counterparts, you know, I feel I was maybe not looked at as closely or as looked at first because maybe some biases going on.
Wow. 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 See, that's something that I never would have known that it would have been a
Oh
heavily
yeah.
dominated female
Hmm.
career and career path. Not only that, I had no
Hmm.
idea that it was such so lucrative. Obviously, I know when people go out there and start their own private practice, that can be very lucrative because you can charge the,
Hmm.
top rates depending on your expertise and so forth. But no, you taught me a lot tonight, Felicia, and for the males that are out there that are watching, and especially for the ones that are going into college or already in college,
Hmm.
give it a shot. Take a look at it. Find an interest in
Yeah,
it. That sounds
absolutely.
it sounds like a wonderful, wonderful career, and obviously, any career that you have a passion for is it's a great career, and it doesn't feel like necessarily it's work. And not only that, it's lucrative, so you can support your family, have the flexibility that you need
Yeah.
to be the best you.
Yeah, I think the most attractive part to me, AJ, has always been being able to decide, okay, I'm done with the nursing home. Let me go over here to the hospital and see what
Mm,
that looks like.
mm,
Or let me go over here to the school system. I want some weekends. I want all the holidays. I want my summer. Or you know what? Let me go over here. It's just honestly, there's so many sectors. Now, even teaching it, teaching at the university, that's a whole different gamut that it affords you. So yeah, the flexibility, the pay is great. I'm not going to overlook that. A lot of our guys are going into the rehab portion,
mm-hmm.
which is great. And you see more adults. You do have adult only clients in rehab, unless it's a pediatric. So it allows you to really do a lot. The field is awesome, and the field is wide open, and the projection of job openings, it's something like, oh my God, the 100,000 new jobs, because you have to realize baby boomers are getting older, and
Yeah.
with that comes strokes and heart attacks, and
Mm.
that's when we step in. That's when we step in. So it's a growing field. It's a growing field.
And your husband said, and the dollar is good.
No, he didn't.
Yeah, you
No,
did.
he didn't.
He would know. He would certainly know. Oh man, that's awesome. So let's do a little bit of a pivot and let's start talking about like diversity.
Hmm.
What is your experience with diversity initiatives? And you work in the schools. You work
Hmm.
for contract with other companies. What's your experience there in diversity initiatives?
Well, first, let me say it's interesting you bring that up because I teach, one of my courses is cultural language variations. I teach the diversity class for the university.
Okay.
So I am huge on diversity. I think that's why I applaud ASHA for trying so hard to bring in minority students by offering them scholarships. And notice I keep saying that because I want people to understand, if they go to the American Speech and Hearing Association website, there are scholarships out there for minorities
Wow.
to go to school. So there's that plug for that. But it's so needed. It's so needed. Our speech patterns are different. African American speech patterns are different. A language is a language. Anything that has a rule governed system, language, be it African American, um, Hispanic, Spanish, anything that's a language. A speech pathologist has to be knowledgeable of it, and
Mm.
you have to know the difference between a dialect and a dialect is not order. So if you have a child who's speaking African American English, they should not be put into a special ed setting or in a speech setting to correct their dialect. They need to be put in the right setting for their disorder. And so that's
Mm.
what I really horn in with my students, that you can't go into an area and oppose standard American English on everyone. Certainly, that's what's taught in school. And so that's how we are supposed to write, and that's what we should understand. But if you're speaking a different dialect, that doesn't make it um, a disorder. So, teaching my students the differences between dialects and disorder is my passion, that they don't go out and misdiagnose someone because their speech is different from theirs.
Makes sense. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense, Felicia. Um, let's do this. Let's talk about. Oh, so Ashley has a good question for you. She says you mentioned that you have always had multiple jobs. How do you maintain a good work-life balance? That's a question I was going to get to, but yeah, let's go ahead and
That's a
answer
great
that question.
question.
Yes.
That's a work in progress, Ashley. But to be honest and just outright tell the truth on that question, I ask for help. If that means a cleaning lady or a cook, um, thank God as a speech pathologist I can afford one. I mean, it's when you're working, it's hard to manage, and so you have to be able to ask for the help you need. Um, when I'm working 2 or 3 jobs, my husband and I, we sit down and talk about what that looks like for us, and we make it work. But I have had to struggle with that because having a child, a husband, trying to make time for yourself, and work 2 or 3 jobs is a lot, and it can be taxing.
Mm.
And so to keep myself sane and everybody else in the house happy, we reach out for help.
And that's what you should do, right? And that's what we should do. We have to reach out for help. It's nothing wrong with asking for help.
Right.
Nothing wrong with
But
it.
now, AJ, I have to say, as women, we tend to feel like we are charged with doing everything, and that can become overwhelming. And so I get where Ashley's, bringing that question, because when you hear a woman say, I'm working 2 or 3 jobs, you often wonder, well, what about her family? What about her husband? What about her
Yeah.
kids?
Yeah.
And I get that question a lot. I do. And, I really do have to make a concerted effort to sit down and balance. Um, and it's a conversation in the house. It's really a conversation that has to take place, and to make sure everything's balanced, because you don't want to be too out of whack and unbalanced with one thing and have something over here lacking.
No, that makes sense. It's the I tell people this all the time. It's whatever works so that you can be the best person
Yep.
that you
Yep.
can
Yep.
be.
Yep.
It's going to be
Yep. Yep.
what your offering is to your partner or to your family, right? And
Yep.
whatever that is that it may be is going to help you be that best person, and help you balance the family aspect of it. Whether that is, I most recently just bought a Peloton for us in the house so that I can
Ooh, yeah.
cut the workouts back from going to the gym, and I can work out in the house, and I can work out on my own schedule, right? And that's me doing something that, keeps me in the house, one, but keeps me working out and
Mm-hmm.
keep me being the best person I can be, so I can best be the best husband towards Teresa and the best father for Ariane and Aegis, right? It's
Right.
finding whatever works for the both of you, and
Mm-hmm.
that works.
Yep.
Let's talk about this. What are your thoughts on Black Heights and the Black Heights Initiative?
Oh gosh, I was so happy to hear that this was your initiative. I think it's so needed. Um, you see so little people of color in entrepreneurial roles or even managerial roles,
Yeah,
and so it's so needed. Mentoring others once you're there is a must. There's no reason to get where you are and not mentor those behind you, because the blueprint is not there. The blueprint is not there for us,
yeah,
um, and that's one of my biggest. I wake up every day wanting to talk to other people about how to do this,
mm,
how to pass
mm.
this on. I'm at 23 years. I am giving myself another 5 or 6, and I don't want to be on somebody's beach somewhere. So, making sure this blueprint is copied and passed on is definitely a goal. And I think Black Heights is doing a great job at that. I think you're doing an excellent job getting people exposed to various occupations, as well as how they did it, understanding that everybody didn't have a silver spoon in their mouth, everyone didn't have a blueprint. It's okay um, to not know in the beginning. Just keep moving, just keep going, just
Yeah.
keep striving, and you'll get there. But you got to just keep going and asking questions and doing your research, studying.
Curiosity is a big one. It is a
Yeah.
huge big one, right? And I think that's what separates a lot of people, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with race or anything like that. A lot of it's just exposure that people have
That's
when
it.
they're growing up, and if you don't have the exposure of traveling the world or knowing that there's career
Hmm.
fields in speech pathology that is very lucrative and you can have
Hmm.
great flexibility, you won't know, right?
Absolutely.
And when you don't know, obviously you're just you're pretty ignorant to it at that point. But
Hmm.
that's what we try to do is we try to expose fields of study that folks can go into to be leaders in. And I'm glad you came onto the show to talk more about speech pathology and the opportunities there are for men, and especially men of color there.
Yes, it's wide open. There's money out there. Go get it.
Awesome, awesome. Let's talk about this. So, I typically ask people, what are the three most important takeaways that you want to share with somebody watching this video that
Hmm.
you just want to remain with them?
Um, as a person of color, you have to work hard,
Mm,
maybe even harder.
mm.
I would say you have to be well studied and well read and on your craft. Um, and I think the third thing is just be ready. I talked about that little 3 month period I had to jump, and I jumped, and I remember thinking to and saying to my husband, if I fail, the one thing about speech pathology is I have something else to fall back on.
Mm.
So that made it a little more palatable for me to do.
No, that's
So just
that's an amazing. That's amazing. Work hard. That's a and yeah, you're gonna find that you have to work hard. A lot of times harder than your counterparts. I can see
hmm
that today. I'm the only African American in our sales organization, and fortunate for me right now, I'm number one. But I necessarily won't be holding on to that very long if somebody has a even better year. But you have to know,
hmm
you have to study and know your craft. I think that was
yes,
key for you.
yeah,
You
yep,
said
yep,
you
yep.
spent 9 years plus before you decided
hmm
to go off and do your own thing. That's an example of studying and knowing your craft. And then
Yeah.
you mentioned just being ready, right? And I don't know when that time is to be ready, but I think that time is typically when you're ready to do something else, meaning that
Yes.
it is that time where you can say, I'm an expert at this, and then if I don't move on, I'm not challenging myself. And if I do move on, right, I want to do it on my own terms. That's what I would say
Right.
by being ready.
Absolutely.
Mm, mm.
hmm
This is this has been absolutely fantastic, Lisa. This has been fantastic. I have to get your husband on here to tell his story too because he has a phenomenal story. So, Lenny,
He
you up next,
does. He
man? You
does.
up
He
next? You up next?
does. That's gonna be funny.
No, that's going to be a good one. Well, let's do this
It is. Yeah.
before we sign off. I got I had some more this or that questions for you, and I'm going to
Okay.
ask you the rest of these before we take it away. Have no knees or have no elbows.
Oh wow, no elbows. I want my knees.
All right.
I can't wear my shoes.
All right. Stuck in the elevator or stuck in the ski lift?
Oh, oh, elevator. Yeah, elevator.
Go to dinner alone or go to a concert alone?
Oh, dinner alone.
Have a life rewind button or have a life pause button?
Pause.
Be too hot or be too cold?
Too cold.
Know you will die or know when, hold on, know how you will die or know when you will die?
Oh, no win.
All right, last question. The Lawrences are coming to visit the Wades in 2019 or take your chances of trying in 2020 when potentially we are gone?
2019.
Awesome. See, we keep it moving. We keep it moving. That's what I love. That's what I love. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. I am so glad that you all joined us. Thank you for tuning in. And if there's any questions that anybody has towards speech pathology, Lisa, do you have a LinkedIn that people can reach out to you? Have a Twitter or anything like that you want to share?
I have a Facebook page and I have an Instagram page, and they're both FEZ Speech
Ooh.
at Facebook, and Instagram is FEZ Speech, I think, at Instagram. I'm not sure.
Awesome.
But I'll give them to you so you can post them.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, cousin, for coming on and talking to us about your journey on the Black Heights podcast. And until next time, because I can't speak tonight. It's been a long day. I've been up since 4 o'clock. But until next time, guys, we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.